Want to know why? Ask how. Howard, the humongous. There's a document I want you to know about when you're thinking out things like Orlando, San Bernardino, Paris, Brussels, and Nice, all of the terrorist attacks. The politically correct position says that these are outliers, that there is no central plan here, that these are crazy people who have perverted Islam. Are there any actual plans, conspiracies within Islam to which these seemingly random attacks contribute? Well, first there's ISIS' plan to establish a global caliphate and take over the world. It was a plan laid down by Muhammad himself in 629 AD when he sent his letters to the emperors and said that God had unrolled the scroll of the earth to him and said that all that was to the west should be his and all that is to the east should be his. But there's another little document that feels very conspiratorial that it's very important to know about. It is a document from 1991 whose edicts are still taken very seriously and are expanding today. It's a document from the Muslim Brotherhood, the mother of most of the groups that pretend to be moderate groups like the Council for American Islamic Relations, groups like the Muslim Student Association, which is very active on campuses, and bans Muslims who are reformers, would-be reformers like Ayan Ali Hirsi and Asra Noani. This is what the Muslim Brotherhood called an explanatory memorandum on the general strategic goal for the group, meaning for the Brotherhood, in North America. And it says that the Brotherhood must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad. Now, some people quibble. Is jihad really an inner spiritual struggle, or doesn't mean battle? It doesn't mean killing people, right? Well, judge for yourself. The Brotherhood must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it, that is Western civilization, is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes. This document, which is about 16 pages long, says that the Muslim community in the United States as of 1991 was in the stage of settlement. What does the stage of settlement mean? When the Muslims were not welcome in Mecca and fled, they fled to a tiny town called Medina. They at first were house guests in that town, and in order to pay off their ansars, their helpers, their hosts, Muhammad decided on a simple expedient. The missions, the camel caravans that carried the wealth of Mecca to Syria and brought back the money the Syrians had paid for this wealth, passed near Medina. And Muhammad organized a gang of Medinaites to go out and raid the camel caravans and steal the goods. This was not a lovely way to make a living for a man who was holy, but you have to remember that Muhammad's idea of holiness was fighting unbelievers and killing them on behalf of Islam. That's what was more profoundly holy than anything else. And Muhammad, eventually the Meccans did not like having their camel caravans raided, and they came and attacked Muhammad. Well, they should have won. They were a well-organized army. Muhammad had just a little rabble. Muhammad won. And just to emphasize the point, Muhammad, who was anything but a kindly man, took the bodies of the leading men of Mecca, the town in which he'd grown up, the people who were known for their generosity and their wisdom, who were now corpses, and threw those corpses down a well to insult them. Well, the the Meccans decided to organize again and try to exterminate Muhammad. And they ended up in a battle called the Battle of Uhud. It's a battle in which Muhammad parked. There was a pass behind him. He had his back to a mountain. There was a pass between humps of the mountain behind him. He positioned 50 archers on that pass, a wise move. But it looked as if he had won the battle. The Meccans had all fled from the battlefield. And his men, who he paid off with loot, with booty, with what they could steal from corpses, his men descended on the battlefield to take every bit of loot they can get. The archers back behind him, seeing this, panicked because they felt that if they didn't get down to the battlefield quickly, all the loot would be gone. So they abandoned their post, and the Meccans came back, doubled round, and came through the pass and caught Muhammad from behind. And Muhammad lost that battle miserably. Now, this is where the phrase, I'm telling you the story of where the phrase, taking apart Western civilization, taking it apart by our own hands, comes from. Because Muhammad, in order to give his men loot and booty and glory and honor, decided to attack a Jewish suburb, which the kind of thing that he did all the time. He besieged them, for the Jews, for 15 days. And finally they surrendered and they begged for their lives. They begged not to be annihilated, because Muhammad was in the annihilation business when it came to his fellow human beings. They begged for a simple ethnic cleansing, and Muhammad granted it to them. He allowed them to take all of the goods, with the exception of the armor, which he wanted for himself, all of the goods they could carry on their camels, and they had to leave the rest behind. Well, the men of the Banu Nadir were famed for tearing down their own dwellings in order to get at the lintels so they could put the lintels on the camels' backs. They were the ones who tore apart their own, at least the architecture of their own society, with their own hands. That is the metaphor through which the Muslim Brotherhood wants to work. It wants us to tear apart Western civilization, what Osama bin Laden called the worst civilization in the history of mankind, with our very own hands. Now, according to Stephen Coughlin, who is a security expert, who was working for the government until midway through the Obama administration, which I support, felt that he was too paranoid for them. But he wasn't paranoid. He's an excellent scholar. And Stephen Coughlin feels that the Islamophobia campaign that's designed to get us to not allow criticism of Islam, to banish it, and various other perceptual campaigns in which we are supposed to bow and say Islam is a religion of peace, even though in fact Muhammad's own form of Islam is not a religion of peace. It's a religion of war. These gestures in which we are supposed to lie to ourselves, those are encouraged by things like the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which has been financing the anti-Islamophobia campaign for roughly the last 20 years. It's an organization of 57 nations, which, with a budget of about $13.5 million a year. It is out to deceive us. It is more than that. It is out to get us to deceive ourselves. And by deceiving ourselves, it seems to want the same goal that this document from the Muslim Brotherhood wants, for us to take our civilization and tear it apart with our own hands. Why? So it can be replaced with an Islamic civilization. So it can be replaced, so our laws, our constitutions, our freedoms, which are regarded as satanic in jihadist Islamic circles. So all of that Satanism can be wiped away, and so that men can live under the pure form of justice that God himself gave to his only true prophet, Muhammad. So there are conspiratorial elements within the Islamic community, a community of 1.6 billion to 1.8 billion people. And even if those conspiratorial elements only control a small portion of the Muslim community, that would be roughly 200 million people. 200 million people is more than the population of France, Germany, and Britain combined at the time of the Second World War. And there is a goal of getting us to dismantle our own civilization with our own hands so that we all come under the control of Islam, or we are killed on behalf of creating total control of North America for Islam. That is what the Muslim Brotherhood wants in this message. And this message is still active today. Groups like the Muslim Brotherhood's supported and founded Muslim Student Association have produced, they've produced presidents of their organization, high-ranking officials in their organization who have presented themselves as moderate Muslims while they've been in America, then have gone overseas and become jihadists, people like Anwar al-Awlaki, because they were never the kind of peaceful Muslims, the kind of moderates that they were claiming to be all along. So keep your eyes on, when conspiratorial theories come up about Islam, take some of them seriously. Yes, check them out. Some of them are probably the dreams of madmen, but some are the dreams of the Prophet Muhammad himself, and those dreams are still catching fire in our world today. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or want to know why? Ask how. And now for the off, there it is, button.